recording?
I have it paused.
Okay, let's go. Good evening and welcome to the July 6, 2021 Shakopee Public Utilities Commission meeting. This meeting is being held at the SPU Service Center, and we ask that all participants mute your devices at this time. The public is welcome, and we have an open time slot for the public to address the commission. Ms. Nelson, will you please call the roll?
President Mokel.
Here.
Vice President Fox.
Present.
Commissioner Brennan.
Here.
Commissioner Krieg is not present. Commissioner Letourneau.
Here.
4 commissioners are present, 1 is absent.
Okay, and moving on to number 2, communications. Does any of the commissioners have anything they received or heard that they want to share with the rest of the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 3, the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve, or if there's any additions or subtractions?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any other comments or questions? All right. Ms. Nelson, will you please, I guess we keep doing the roll thing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to number 4 is our reports, the liaison items, and Commissioner Brennan.
We haven't had a full council meeting since the last time we met, but we did take a tour, the council and staff took a tour of Shakopee and looked at the different developments and projects that are going currently. And we did see the work that's being done on Libby Drive, as well as the water tower construction that's being done in Windermere. So it was a pretty eventful evening. It was a good 2.5 hour drive around the city to look at everything. So it was very good. Good to see everything. I think that's all I have to date.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Brennan? Seeing none, thank you, Jody. All right, we'll move on to number 5, which is our public comment period. The public comment period provides an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda. Comments should not exceed 5 minutes. As president, I may adjust that time based upon the number of persons seeking to comment. This comment period may not be used to make personal attacks, to air grievances, or for political endorsements or campaigns. The public comments are intended for informational purposes only, and commissioners will not enter into a dialogue with the commenters, and questions from commissioners will be for clarification only. Seeing nobody here, we will move on to number 6, our general manager report, 6A, general manager update. Greg.
Thank you, President and Commissioners. We have been working hard on our compensation classification study. We actually had internal equity reporting that we're working on as a management group. We spent a couple days working through some of those, not full days, but they were 2 different days that we worked on that. So we got through most of that, and now the next phase of it is finalizing job descriptions and working on some of those things. So we are working behind the scenes again, so we're going to have that. We're going to be the first one in September. We'll have that completed with draft reports prior to that. EV chargers, we have been working with the city and MMPA. Haven't nailed down a final one, but state bid did come out. I've been talking to Michael Kursky. I just talked to him last week. Joe and I did. And we will make some final decisions coming up on what the cost structure looks like. It looks like we may do some of the install ourselves, besides final hookup with an electrician. Just from what we get from MMPA and some of the costs that they were talking about as a group, the city and myself and Joe, we kind of looked at that, and we're probably going to do some of the install ourselves. So we'll definitely be working through those, but we do want the 3 that the city is going to purchase with the grant and the 3 that SPU has, we want them to be the same. So anytime anybody goes to a city or an SPU facility, city parks, that they're all the same. So we're definitely on agreement on that. We did start the rate study agreement. We are having Dave Berg help us out with that. That will be done, I think, Joe, correct me wrong, in November, I think is the completion date on that. We did have $40,000 budgeted for that in our budget. It came in at 25 plus some miscellaneous expenses that we'll have on top of that, so it should be well within budget. I did have some meetings with some of the commissioners. We'll have some more coming up, so that's been good. Meeting with Bill Reynolds this last week, meeting with the mayor next Monday. We do have some franchise fee discussion that we're starting to work on, calling some other communities, so we kind of have some data to go over and stuff like that, so we'll be working on compiling that data. We have a meeting scheduled with Savage on some interconnection on water side of things, emergency both ways, so we want to have some more discussions on what that looks like, so we got a meeting scheduled with that. YouTube Live, hopefully by our next meeting, to the public. We did worked on a survey, we're working on a survey with our billing system. I didn't get it in this one, but I will have it in the next one. The Union Bureau of Mediation Services did fail, and so there's not going to be a union here right now, and I will get that in the next one, just under consent item for that. We did have building expansion. Bids were due today, so we're working on that. Preliminary numbers are good. We're going to be, it looks like we're going to be under budget on that. Haven't got final numbers. There's just some red lines on certain numbers that they didn't get final bids on. Smaller amounts, but the heavy lifting of it is under budget. So I'm excited about that, and we'll continue to work on some of that stuff. Prior Lake, we did get notice on a public meeting that they're having. They're going to increase some of their franchise fees in Prior Lake from $1 to $5. So they got a public meeting on July 27th, and then September 7th, they're going to take that up at Prior Lake. So I'll probably try to attend one of those meetings. Did get a scheduled with Alyssa Fry from the city on employee handbook and update that. That's July 19th. And I know I need to get back to it. We were going to do some additional tours of facilities, water towers and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, unless we just want to meet at certain locations, otherwise I think it may be easier if we get a little bus to drive everyone around to different ones. So I will make sure that we're available. Like tonight's going to be a little bit shorter meeting, but we'll make sure everyone's available. I would like to tour some of our facilities and what we got going. We got some pictures today. But then, I also talked to the generation plant. I know there's been some interest in looking at that. So I did talk to the manager there, and he said absolutely. So I'd like to schedule that as part of our tour as well. So, so those are some things that we're working on behind the scenes, but very busy. Development is going well, and things are moving. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Durant?
Aren't you technically sitting for questions?
Yes.
End of my question.
All right.
And Greg, am I correct that next Wednesday is our first pilot meeting with the mayor and finance directors?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, I didn't know if you had said that, so.
Yep. So I'll be working on the sheets prior to that, but yes, that's next Wednesday
Okay.
is our meeting. Correct.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right. With that, we will move on to number 7, water items. And 7A is the Water Systems Operation Report, and Greg will be giving that tonight.
Yes, thank you. Lon is on vacation, so he had wrote up a couple things, and then I'd ask Dave Hagan also to give us a little update on construction. So the Consumer Confidence Report has been submitted to the Minnesota Department of Health and accepted. It also has been posted on our website. Consumer Confidence Report, also known as Water Quality Reports or Drinking Water Quality Reports, provides you with an important information about the quality of our drinking water. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency requires every community water supplier to provide a CCR to its customers. We pumped 335 million gallons in June. Our predicted pumpage was 214 million gallons. Our biggest day in June was 4.655 million gallons. With some rain, it dropped now to 10.5 million gallons on average. Drought condition remained moderate with -2 to 4 inches of rain. Some of the projects that the field guys are working on: Canterbury Crossing construction, water main is 100% complete. Testing just started. Summerlin Place, Phase 1, north and south connections are made. Schneider property is under review. Windermere South Ford, all water main 100% completed, only 18 water services remaining. Whispering Waters is under review. Texas Roadhouse service line is complete, being tested on 7-9. Southwest Logistics is under construction. Water is complete and is working on testing. Stagecoach realignment, we'll test the connection on 7-7. Job is 50% complete. Scott and Levy Recon will start July 19th with temp water and construction. Shakopee Flats, construction, old service was disconnected, new water line in a month. County Road 83 Recon, we're working on that with the county. City mill and overlay, we're checking on valves on a weekly basis to make sure everything is good there. And tank number 8, the bottom of the bowl is complete, and it is scheduled to be online in the end of November. So with that, if there's anything I can answer or Joe can answer, I know Joe's in charge of a lot of these projects as well. They have weekly meetings that they get updated.
Any questions for Mr. Drent or Joe? All right, thank
very
you.
much.
Seeing none, we'll move on to 7B, which is the County Road 83 project and 24 and SPU 18-inch water main replacement. Mr. Adams.
Thank you, President Mokel. Staff is seeking direction from the commission on this project. There's a significant amount of public funds that in play here for the water utility, and the county has a very important project to improve a very important road near a lot of current development that's occurring in the city at Canterbury. We are recommending that the commission grant the general manager some discretion in seeking an amicable resolution with the county, but if necessary, to have the authority to terminate the construction cooperative agreement with the county. As noted last month in the staff report, the commission and the county are parties to a construction cooperative agreement for this project. There's a 1.1 mile stretch of County Road 83 being reconstructed, and included in that is a project to replace the 18-inch water main of Shakopee Utilities. The original estimates going into this bidding on the project was a little over $900,000 for the reconstruction or replacement of the water main, but the bids, as you know, came in quite a bit higher, over $2 million total, for over a difference of over $1 million with one bid item in particular for removal of the existing water main sections of it being over $500,000 higher than the engineer's estimate. There were other bid concerns with the total cost being more than 12% higher than the overall estimate, and so it was ultimately decided to reject those bids, and the county board did that. Now the county staff expects to rebid this project in the fall at the end of September. We did talk with the staff at the county and expressed the desire for SPUC to have more control over the outcome of the new bids. Right now, per the agreement, the county has the authority to award the bid regardless of what the total is of the water main, but in the overall interest of the overall budget. We asked that the commission, or that the water main be made a separate bid tab, and one that the commission could weigh in on whether they could afford to do the project with the prices being much higher, assuming that there would not be another bid irregularity. We do still expect the cost to be higher than what was originally budgeted. But if there was another irregularity where the cost was even that much higher than the current economics call for, the commission should have the ability to withdraw from the project. And I suggested a second separate bid tab that would just be the minimal work needed to be done if the water main wasn't being replaced. With the widening of the road, there are certain things that have to move, like hydrants and valves have to be put at a new elevation. And there might need to be some additional stubs put out for future development. Those suggestions were rejected by the county staff as being too complicated for bidders to be able to bid a project with multiple bid tabs and an alternate bid for the water main. So consequently, I informed them that then it would be the commission's preference to immediately go to the reduced level of work and not replace the water main in whole, but only do the minimal amount of work, given the uncertainty of what the bids would come in and if there'd be another bid irregularity or not. County staff's very reluctant, they expressed, of having the water main portion removed from the project at this date. We reminded the county that it was our belief during the planning process, it was our choice on whether to replace the water main or not, and that now that the costs appear to be as high as they are, that it should be our choice to drop it out, if you will, with that expense. The county believes they may have some authorities to order us to replace the water main, relocate it out from under the travel lane. With the expansion, of course, of the roadway, the travel lane would be over the top of the water main. Right now, the water main's in the ditch line or boulevard area. So even though the city has a sanitary sewer in the right-of-way, and the city's sewer will remain under a travel lane. They have county staff has a belief that all utilities, it's their stated policy that all utilities, when they do a project of this magnitude, should be relocated so that they are not left under a travel lane. We've asked why are they allowing the city sewer to remain and not allowing the water main to remain. If you recall the discussion, perhaps we didn't get into the detail of it, but most of the water main pipe would be left in place, abandoned, filled with sand, so there wouldn't be any risk of collapse, but being filled with water, there wouldn't be risk of collapse of the road unless there was a water main break. Now, if there was a break, we would have to repair not only the break, but we would have to restore the surface. And what the county's concern is not so much that we wouldn't do that. We would obviously do that. We would bear the expense of doing that, but it would take somewhere between 10 and 15 days for that process to occur, and they'd have to shut down a travel lane. With a divided highway, such as the design is, that means one lane in each direction shifted over to the other side of the right-of-way, and the public would have that inconvenience for that period of time. And that's what appears to me to be their biggest concern, that should not have to happen and wouldn't happen if the water main was located out from under the travel lane.
Joe, can you also talk about, speaking of that issue, can you talk about, we do have ways of feeding it so we wouldn't inconvenience them during busy times?
Well, right. The water main, 1.1 miles of water main, we have a lot of valving in it, a lot of Ts. We have other connecting water mains. So we would do a workaround and keep as many customers in service as possible and isolate the section that was damaged and try to minimize that. Then, because our water system is looped, we should be able to keep almost everybody in service until such time that we can set up the proper traffic control. And certainly if there was a major event going on at Canterbury, we could put off the repair for that if there was a week-long event or something, while protecting the road from any further damage. And in looking at the redesign, if we are allowed to redesign it, we would make sure to add any valves that we don't already have in place to be able to do that. The two options that we're recommending, while we're waiting for a response from the county on whether they have the authority and how they believe they have the authority to order us to relocate it or not, we think that the commission should grant the manager the discretion to deal with this issue because it is an important project that has a big community impact, and there's not a lot of time to deal with the day-to-day negotiations and come back to the commission every time the county provides more information. So I think it's best that the general manager have some discretion to deal with this, to end up with a result in the best interest of the water customers and our funds and the general public, so that we don't impact the county's project timeline, because they do have federal funds involved and they do need to meet deadlines, and they want the best bid environment possible by doing this in the fall. But if they're not able to come to a conclusion that is agreeable to our interest, to have the general manager have the discretion to be able to terminate the contract. There is a 90-day notice provision in the construction co-op agreement, and if it is terminated, then it would be presuming that a new agreement would need to be negotiated. I'll take any questions.
I think, first of all, I just wanted to start by addressing the authority piece of this memo. I think that is the most concerning thing to me as a commissioner, is that I thought we were entering into this as a partnership, and I feel like we're being strong-armed into doing what the county wants. That's one of my concerns when I was reading this. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add or have a question at this point?
I'm kind of curious, would there be, don't want to use the word follow, but would there be any ramifications to backing out of the agreement and signing a new one? Or like, are there any kind of exit clauses that would be detrimental?
I don't really see anything in there specific. We did offer, to redesign the water system and make the changes necessary with all the other plan sheets, that we would fund that cost. We are committed in the co-op agreement to pay a flat fee for the design services of the consulting engineer for the county, and we offered, if we were to remove the water main portion of the project and make all the necessary adjustments to all other plan sheets, that we would pay for that cost. But it doesn't envision that in the present agreement. But we thought that was only right to offer to do that, and we would agree to do that. And I don't know what other exit costs there might be claimed. I don't have an idea. There's nothing specific in the agreement.
Madam President, Commissioners, the only thing I would add is that the termination provision does call for a 90-day advance notice, and there is a provision as to materials that have been ordered. So if the commission were in the position of wanting to terminate the agreement, you would want to do that before materials are ordered, and certainly we don't want to interfere with the county's timeline and federal funding to continue with the project. So the timing is such that it would be prudent to terminate it before there are a lot of materials and the bid documents, for example, go out.
I know Commissioner Brennan has a comment, but one other thing that when we looked at the agreement the first time, Kayla, didn't it have a stipulation that it also has to pass what the state would require for this federal funding as well? I mean, as one of the three partners, if ours is heavier on one side and doesn't it have to meet some kind of testing for finance?
President Mokel, I think you may be referring to that the bid responses were more than 10% greater than
Yes.
The original estimate, which I believe required approval from MnDOT. So I think that's a
That's what
little
I was
bit
thinking of, yeah.
separate.
Okay. Commissioner Brennan, I believe you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I want to thank Joe and Greg for the work that they're doing on this. I know that it's been kind of a long-going conversation, and I appreciate it. What is the remaining lifespan of the water main, do you think?
Well, based on our knowledge, it's 47 years old from when it was installed. There have not been any water main breaks. It is a very large pipe, 18-inch, some of the largest pipe we have in our system. So the larger the pipe and the more volume of water, it's tied into one of our largest water towers, obviously, on County Road 83, the less likely for water to freeze and cause a problem. It's bedded in sand and has been very stable. we believe, and we have seen evidence of other water mains that have lasted over 100 years, when finally reconstruction dictates they be pulled out of the ground, and they're still in very good physical condition. The one concern we would have is, would the pipe be disturbed during the construction activities if it was left in place? Sometimes that can occur when there is sanitary sewer deeper than the water main, and there are services coming off of both pipes and crossing the mains of the other utility, especially if the services are coming under the water and those are being replaced. That could disturb the foundation of where the water main's laid. But in this case, the city is not replacing the sanitary sewer, and there aren't other activities that would go as deep as the water main. Because it is an 18-inch water main, it is not undulating like the topography of the ground above it at the minimum depth. It's laid at a certain grade to minimize the low and the high points, so that it's extra depth. It's not just 7.5 feet deep. In some places, it's as deep as 14 feet right now, and after the regrading, it'll still be at least 7.5 feet deep. But nothing, to my knowledge, in the plans indicates any other utilities, storm sewer or sanitary, that might be near it will be replacing, entrenching below it, so disturbing it. So I believe, based on the experience here in Shakopee, this pipe's good for another 50 plus years. And while they're putting concrete over the surface of their roadway, and they have a belief that that'll be a 50-year surface before they would, because of maintenance, that they would not be digging it up to replace it for 50 years, well, then that would coincide with more of the timeline of the water main. But be that as may, the water main wasn't being removed for the most part. It was being filled with sand, and the new location was going to be adjacent and under a bituminous trail in the East Boulevard. Well, that bituminous trail will not last 50 years. They'll have to rebuild that before then. So there'll, in my belief, be multiple opportunities based on what happens in the next, if the water main were allowed to remain in place over the next 50 years, where the trail, the opportunity to place a new water main under the trail would occur 20 years from now, 25 years, 30 years from now. And what happens between now and then with any of the breaks and repairs that might be needed, you could make a judgment call then. You wouldn't have to wait till the actual roadway is completely torn out to effectively put in a new pipe to replace this one. We at one time did an analysis based on city street reconstructions and how many times would a water main break have to occur and have the cost incurred to repair it and restore the surface to the street standards before it's, worthwhile to replace the whole aged water main. And you could have 3 or 4 breaks before you really would need to do that or justify doing that. And we haven't had one in 47 years, knock on whatever your superstition is, but it's not the only pipe in town like that. It's like that in most of Shakopee.
All right. That's good information. And that's what I was wondering, how often you could have a break and what would be the cost of it before we hit that $1 million.
Yeah, economically, I don't think you can justify this. I really can't. At $1 million, it was a tough pill to swallow, but we could do it. But at $2 million, I just can't recommend that we replace this water main. It doesn't make economic sense. The part that the county is pointing out is not the cost of repairs, it's the inconvenience and the frequency of repairs that they don't think they should, the county as a whole, the traveling public as a whole, should bear that risk of having that inconvenience occur. I can't respond to that. It's not an economic question. I don't think it's likely to occur but I can't put a number on it. Is it gonna be once in 50 years, twice? You could put a number on it, and you could say, well, if it happens 3 times, then we'll go and replace the water main with tearing out the trail or timing it with the trail, even though you might think it lasts 50 years. If it has 3 strikes, it's out. In the next 25 years, then you go and replace it. It's just, wow, for $1 million, you could do a lot of repairs.
Anybody else? Justin?
I was just wondering, are breaks more likely as the pipe gets to the end of its useful life?
Well, as I noted, the pipe we pull out of the ground, just because when it's bedded in the sandy soils that are, and we do have bedrock, no question, in parts of Shakopee, and you dig out the rock and then you bed it in sand, but without the bedrock, it's sandy down here in the lower valley, so we don't have corrosive soils, notwithstanding what's happening on Hanson Avenue and in Southbridge. But that isn't the situation. We don't have a high water table in this area to put the pipe in peaty soils. It's sandy soils, it drains really well. If it's left alone, we pull that pipe out of the ground in First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue in the 20-plus years I've been here, and the water operators bring in sections of the pipe, and there's no scale on it, there's no longitudinal cracks or radial cracks in it. We don't get a lot of breaks here, and I think it's a combination of the soil and the stability, and that we adhere to that depth so that we don't get the freeze-thaw action. We're deep enough, and this pipe is definitely deep enough and big enough that it's not going to freeze.
The other question I had is, you said that if we had to basically put off repairs for an event at Canterbury, some people might not have water for some days. You might be able to route around for most people, but there might be some people without water. Did I understand that correct, or did I mishear that part?
Well, we would look at adding some valving and some stubs if necessary to really minimize that. Right now, because they're large pipes connected to it, there are very few individual service lines connected to this pipe. It's a transmission main, if you will, and there are connecting water mains, and we should have the valving in place, but should we have a situation where we don't, we could add the valves now with this project, and then we could isolate the section that's out, and maybe there'd be 1 or 2 odd customers, but they're not residents. They're all businesses, and they're all reliant on their water as a resource, but there are workarounds. We do temporary water connections from hydrants all the time, for domestic water purposes, maybe not fire protection, obviously, but it would be for a minimal amount of time. I mean, it's not for the entire summer but if it was winter time, we could work around it and then thaw the ground and dig it up and repair it. Putting the concrete surface in winter would be more difficult. So maybe that's something we do wait and don't do that repair until the thaw has occurred and you can get a better road surface. Or if we have to, we do it, but then there's the added expense. We have to redo the surface to the county's satisfaction at a time to be determined because you've done a temporary patch.
Okay. So people would be able to have service. It would just be temporary service. It might just be a pipe running, a hose running across their yard or across the grass.
Their parking lot, and it'd
But
have to be
they would still have
protected.
water.
I mean, there's ways to work around that so everyone has water service.
All right.
Any other questions? BJ?
So when this process started, were we of the mindset that we would replace if cost was what we thought what it would be?
Reviewing the record, it appears, because the planning for this project started in 2018. It's been a long time in coming.
Okay.
There were a lot of what were called project management team meetings that we were a party to. Early on, there was an indication, it was more of a question. Do you plan to replace the water main? We didn't think there was a need for it. The county did an earlier project on the north end of County Road 83, from 101 intersection to Valley Industrial Boulevard, or to Fourth Avenue, between Fourth Avenue and Valley Industrial Boulevard South. Our water main ran east-west at Valley Industrial Boulevard North, across 83 to the West Boulevard, and then it ran west, or south in the West Boulevard. And after the improvements, it was still mostly in the West Boulevard. That water main was actually a little older than this section of water main. That was put in by Eagle Creek Township before it became annexed into the city. We chose not to replace that water main for many of the reasons I just stated, that we thought there were decades of life left in it. It was a great expense for minimal benefit, and that we could replace it in the future when it got closer to the 100-year mark. When this project started, they asked, were you gonna replace it? We brought it to the commission, then Utilities Manager John Crooks made the recommendation to replace it, based on, at that time in the planning stage, the cost was about $800,000, we were being told. As time went on, a couple years of planning, the ultimate final design with replacement had grown to $938,000. But when the bids came in, we were just shocked at, due to COVID, due to material shortages, due to labor shortages, all the bids were high. But that one bid item was the most shocking was, why was this one item so heavily loaded? And we were just told, well, that's always been the risk. When they do this, you're talking a $12 to $14 million project overall, and any one of the partners could have something like that done. The contractors like to get some working capital, and so they front load something they can do early on in the project and get paid quickly. But it's never happened to us before, because we've never been the majority of a project. We're 1.5 million of a $15 million project, or plus or minus. We're about 10% of this overall project. We'd never seen someone do that before to us. But it apparently has always been a risk, and bad on us that we weren't as well versed in that bidding process or bidding game or bidding practices. But makes me rethink, we should maybe do standalone projects rather than, be a partner in such a big project. If we could go in the past, we buried our electric lines, and the gas company relocated, and the telephone communication companies, they all relocated a year ahead of time. We could have been doing the water main at the same time, but hindsight, right?
Right. Yeah, so I mean, to me, that the double in price of what we thought it was is significant enough to me to say that things would need to be reevaluated. And to me, it also sounds as though that that double in price is over a 10 to 15 day inconvenience to a mile stretch of road. So I'm not sure.
But I think your question actually answers something else, is because now the county is saying it's always been their policy to require all of this to be taken out, when in actuality, that was not talked about in the beginning of this project or brought up. And now it's all of a sudden a thing, which concerns me. So I guess,
we've had
No, that's
other
okay.
projects. County Road 101, First Avenue, the water main, the sewer lines were replaced, but we're under the pavement. We're under the travel lane. There is no other room with 0 setbacks in that zone. County Road 69 to the further west of downtown, same thing. But they're new, so the county feels more comfortable with that, apparently, because they're brand new, but they're still under the travel lane, and if they did break, we would be shutting down traffic in order. It's not a divided road, so it'd just be the one lane, but with a divided road, they point out from intersection to intersection, they would have to shut that whole segment down and move all the traffic to one side or the other. They can't cross over between intersections because they have an island there. and it's concrete, which, you know, they put a big investment in it, and they don't really want to see it disturbed. A lot of federal money going to aid that. I just, you know, how come it's okay in some situations and sometimes it's not? And how come you didn't tell us this in the beginning and order us in the beginning? Is this really a policy, or is this a desire from staff that are pushing really hard to bring the project in as envisioned? I don't know. That's why we're waiting on a reply from them. Is this really a policy? Do you really have that authority? It's a gray area at this point until they provide some more documentation.
Well, I have some thoughts, and not that I don't think that the action is worth doing. What I was thinking is, again, not wanting to play this card every time we have a project, but would it be beneficial to have, you know, Commissioner Brennan and myself approach these commissioners from the county? Because to me, it sounds like they want the partnership. That was their comment the last time I contacted them. They don't want to see this project and ruin a relationship. Whereas I think sometimes county staff takes themselves a little bit away from what's best for all three of us. And I'm only picking out Commissioner Brennan because she has the relationship as being a council member as well. And it would be helpful to have maybe two people saying the same thing to them. Or we can split them up however we want to do that. As far as, you know, giving Greg authorization to do this, I have no issue with that. One thing I would ask before you take that action is just making sure that all the commissioners are aware of it before you have to do that via, you know, communication to us. And that would just be my only other comment on this. Any other thoughts from
So
commissioners?
90 days from today is October 4th. Right, and if they want to bid this by the end of September, we're already past that time, right? So if we're going to break that agreement, we need to break it now, right? If we don't want to interrupt their timeline.
That's correct.
Right.
Time is short. That is correct.
Yep, go ahead.
I think the reason we were, if we get a positive feedback with them on some of the dialogue we've had in the last couple days, we had a meeting with them, they were gonna go review some stuff. We just thought if we got positive feedback, we wouldn't have to break the agreement, we're just amending it. Where if they come back and say, nope, you're absolutely, then that's when we were thinking about, well, we don't wanna wait till the 21st to say, well, if you're gonna have that stance, then we wanna be out of the contract. So I guess that's why we talked about that way. If we got a favorable response saying, all right, we'll amend the documents, then we would stay in it because we got amended agreement. That's why we were thinking of it that way. So
Okay.
But even if we get the amendment, I do think we probably want clarity on whether or not they actually have this authority over us or not.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably true for the city too, whether or not the county can just order us to move stuff around as they see fit.
Well, when this came back to us the first time, I know that Steve Lillyhog had sent staff and myself an email stating, why don't you leave this pipe in place? We're leaving the sewer in place rather than having that extra cost. So I think the city sees it from that point as well, but, you know, we can have Commissioner Brennan, you know, confirm that from her end, just to make sure we're not thinking something is being asked of us that isn't being asked of the city, just so that we're clear. Because again, if this is a policy, it doesn't mean that policies can't be amended at times for different reasons. You know, just because we've always done things a certain way isn't how it should always be done going forward. That's the thing that just drives me crazy. Things change and situations are all different. So, I mean, those are what I'm thinking. Do we want to put it in a form of a motion, or is everybody on board with that thinking? I mean, obviously, we are still waiting for the county to come back with that statement, is whether they have the authority over us to do this, is how I kind of feel that's being stated. But again, this is just a piece of the puzzle, and we've got some other pieces that we maybe can use and put this back together. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Brown.
I know in conversations that sewer line is
Yes.
remaining where it
Okay.
is. And I think that you could probably find that information pretty easily in the plans for the,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's remaining in place.
yeah. And, we're here to protect the ratepayers of Shakopee Public Utilities, and the county is aware of that, and their need to protect the county residents on their taxes. And, they know how that process is, they understand it, and they understand at the city also, you do whatever you can do to protect the entity that you're working for. So I would also agree, and I'll put it to a motion. I make a motion to pursue revising the project scope to keep the water main in place, or seeking an amicable resolution with the county staff. And if those efforts are unsuccessful, then the general manager is authorized to provide notice to Scott County that SPU is terminating the contract, construction cooperative agreement. And I would like to add in there that Commissioner Mokel and I will contact the county commissioners and conveying our thoughts on this and the direction that the commission is taking.
Can I get a second?
I will second that, but I'm also curious if Joe could spitball kind of a figure that a potential repair could cost.
Well, we were faced with this down on County Road 69 for trying to remove some water services that were proposed to be left in place with the Levy Drive project. That's an asphalt surface, but it was projected to restore it and dig it out, do the proper abandonment at the main, and then do the proper restoration above it at something in the order of $20,000. Now, with the concrete and with the more complex roadway and higher traffic volumes, I mean, say it, worst case, it's twice that, $40,000. That's a spitball for you.
Yes, it's not a million.
We did look at that, and we did have a meeting about that. How many times would it have to break really to get this? And yeah, I think we're at 40, okay, we have to do traffic and some stuff. You could even stretch to 50, but I don't think you can stretch much more than that, really, to repair a broken spot right now at current, unless something changes a lot.
Right, and that's digging something up that you know is not leaking, but if it's a break and it's leaking, there could be a bigger area that needs to be repaired, but it's all speculation.
Yeah.
40, 50,000, $1 million goes a long way.
So we could fix it effectively 20 times.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think
We
the
haven't had to
county
fix
would
it once.
appreciate that, but.
Right. All right, so the motion is to revise this project scope, have the general manager give him the authority to terminate if necessary, and Commissioner Brennan and myself the authority to contact the other commissioners. Any other comments or questions?
Can I just
Oh, yep,
So I would be, if this does happen, I will send an email, just a
Yes.
reminder that we can't reply to the email that we're making decisions. So
Right.
the decision's already been made, it would just be an information email sent out, this is what we're doing.
Yep.
Just a reminder of that.
Correct. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your work on this. It's been a little stressful. All right, we're moving on to number 8, which is our electric items. And 8A is our electric systems operation report. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Commission. I have 6 outages to report since our last meet. On the 22nd of June, Eagle Creek Boulevard, Squirrel opened one customer for 20 minutes. On the 26th, Autumn Trail, that's another Squirrel as well. It's active time. One customer out for 24 minutes. On the 28th of June, Wilking Way, one customer, 73 minutes. We had a secondary fault in between a pedestal and a transformer. SPU repaired that fault. On the 30th, 11th and Main, 32 customers, 23 minutes, a Squirrel as well on that one. That one particular, we had done a pole wrap program about a year, 2 years ago. The squirrel actually ate the pole wrap and crawled underneath it.
Wow.
So they're active. The 1,000 block on the 4th, just recently, 1,000 block of Main and Market, we had 8 customers out, 30 minutes, fuse link at the cutout pulled apart. And then on the 4th as well, 800 block of Sarah's in here, 8 customers, 70 minutes, we had a bad transformer. High heat, it was low oil in the transformer, so all has been repaired. Just a list of current projects, update and completed. Canterbury Park, we installed a new primary service over there for irrigation pumps. They plan on using pond water to irrigate along the boulevards there of Shenandoah Drive. So that has been installed, it is not energized yet. The alleyway street lighting between the blocks of First and Second Avenue from Lewis to Fuller, adding some street lighting in there, along with the city recon of the alleyway. Unbridled Avenue is completed finally, the street lighting project over there. Overhead electric removed from the Latour Farm. That's the future development site, I believe Windermere 5th. So that project is moving forward as well. Electric service installed at the SMSC Tinta Otanwe Park. And then crews are doing the underground inspections at this time. They actually go through and inspect all of our underground services, visually inspect transformers. We use infrared cameras to kind of see if there's hot points or connection problems. They have found a few issues and they have been fixed accordingly, so it's good to get out and visually inspect them things. You don't really see them. There's a lot of them out there, so. And then our future West Sub Shakopee sub site out there, we cultivated the area and planted some prairie grasses out there. There was some weeds starting to grow unsightly, so we put some grasses in there. And then, Mr. Gent, you have some pictures?
They're up there right now.
It's kind of an update of the Levy Drive duck bank, basically from Scott Street to Home Street Bridge. We're putting there's overhead facilities along the river that we're putting underground. So it's a duck bank. It's about 10 6-inch conduits that are running, it'd be east to west along Levy Drive and then partway up Scott Street. So this is a portion. This is looking from Home Street Bridge going west. Manhole and then the duck bank pack running down. They're probably almost up to Atwood Street with the duck bank at this point. There's an open point in the center, but it's coming along good. It's all encased in concrete, 4 feet deep. There's little shallow areas, but we can put some more concrete on top of that, protect it. It's our main feeders out of the Shakopee sub site, and we usually the mainline feeders we try to protect as well as we can. So that's why they're kind of getting concrete duck banks. A lot of rock down there, as you can see, a lot of limestone. So it's coming along good. Be a good project to get wrapped up. This is a 2-part project along with the Shakopee Flats, I believe the project is, the apartment that's down on between Scott and Atwood. So this is the first portion of it, and then the developer is doing the street recon on the other portion, so it'll be a lengthy project, but a good one to get done. With that, I stand for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Carlson?
No, but it's very impressive. We stood up on the bridge and looked down at it, so if anybody wants to go check it out, you just go up on the bridge, and so it's very impressive work.
Can you map me where this is at? As the newest resident of the city of Shakopee?
Well, yes, I could try to, but
Or I got,
If you're at the 101 bridge crossing at First Avenue,
I'm here.
Okay, so,
Where the statue is?
Uh-huh.
so this is the new highway and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the old bridge, and so it's that way.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Looks great.
Yeah, looks
It's an
sweet.
exciting project to have. Is there any other questions for Mr. Carlson? Great. Thank you. We are now moving on to number 9, which is human resources, and 9A is our general manager employment agreement. Kayla and I spoke over the phone. We did a few back and forth emails to kind of go through this agreement. I apologize that I didn't think of it earlier, but Commissioner Brennan pointed out we should give the salary cap information, so I did have Kayla send that out today. Sorry that didn't get out earlier for you to go over. But one of the things is we have to stay within that cap, and part of this agreement was making sure that the bits and pieces all added up in the right direction. And I think, Kayla, did you want to speak to anything before we get started?
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, I would just note if, how the commission would like to proceed. We can certainly go through section by section if you would like, or if there are any questions, President Mokel and I would be happy to answer them.
Okay.
The one question that stood out to me was about the car money being paid. I thought with the electric vehicle, we were going to be waiving that.
So when we went through trying to figure out the electric vehicle and the mileage from home and to work, it got more complicated than we wanted it to be. And so in our discussions with Greg, we kind of just came up with a dollar figure. And I think it's fair from that perspective, because we wanted to make sure that, if we're going to do the automobile allowance here, we didn't want it cutting into the salary somewhere else, and so that was why we kind of did it the way we did, is because it doesn't mean that he can't use the vehicle, it's just that otherwise it makes it really complicated. Because if it's goes over a certain amount, then we got to figure out, we can't really take away salary at that point. And that's where that concern came in. And Kayla, am I right in how we kind of decided that?
Yes, I would just say that there's a whole world of tax implications and imputing personal income if you're using the vehicle for personal use, and it does get a little complicated pretty quickly. And so the thought was maybe to keep it clean and straightforward and just do the monthly car allowance, and it's based upon the historical number that the commission has used in allocating a car allowance to the general manager. So all in all, it seemed a more straightforward way to go.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Jean McGann, who's a CPA, reviewed that, and it would be considered personal miles for me to do, even though it was driving to work. If there's an office here where I report every day, it's called personal miles. So all those miles would be personal, and then I would be taxed at a certain rate for that. And depending on how many miles I put on for work versus considered personal miles, it can be a significant income because it's based off on how much the vehicle cost and all that other stuff. So it did creep up fairly fast on that. And then we just had a discussion, and I would definitely have to keep track of all those miles, and it just got very complicated very fast, and it could be in excess of, I think I've seen some $8,000 number that it could be as income, and then it got to be challenging on where that is. So that's why we just decided that it would be, rest assured, the car will be used. I've talked to Mr. Carlson about having our locator, maybe sometimes, maybe not, depending on whether he's going on job sites. We do pay for some meter readers where we pay mileage. We probably would put this into their rotation. We do go to certain meetings internally that we pay mileage, that this vehicle would be used for them things. So the car definitely will be out and about yet. It's not like it's a wasted purchase for the utility. We still want to do the research. We still want to charge, see how many miles we can get. Once in a while, we have schoolings, and if the MMUA has an office in Plymouth, we may have, rather than one of our trucks going, we'd say, hey, take that electric vehicle up there to see what it's like and see how far kind of range we can get and some of those things. So we've talked internally, what does that vehicle look like? And those are just some of the things that we've talked about internally.
And part of that is maintenance plays into that as well. And with the electric vehicle, there was a few unknowns with what maintenance would require. Whereas in a regular vehicle, it's the oil changes, it's the gasoline, it's those types of things.
Can you I'm sorry, I just need clarification. Are you saying that the car would be used primarily for the staff for different jobs instead of for the general manager's use.
That would be a correct statement.
Okay.
Correct. So because, now, would I want to see what it's like and drive it? Yeah, once in a while I may do that, but absolutely it would be a staff internally to be done. It wouldn't be, you know, a car that the general manager would use. That's what the vehicle stipend is for. I would not view it as being used on a regular basis at all. Like I say, I may take it to a meeting or here just to see what it's like, see how it reacts. So when people ask me, have you driven an electric car? Yeah, I have, and here's what I see on that. But, no, absolutely, it would be used internally by the staff.
Okay.
All right. Is there another section? I can go in order. We can, I mean, 1 is pretty self-explanatory. 2 is the position. Keep in mind, we have a job description that's not quite finished. So that will have to be approved at a later date to be added to this contract. The term, if there's any questions there. Compensation. Vacation.
I had a clarifying question.
Sure.
Since this has worked in my benefit in the past. Where I currently work weeks or 7 days, so I worked before weeks for 5 days in my contract. And so when I moved to a new place, I had way more vacation than I expected.
Yep.
I just didn't know how we define weeks, because it says 4 weeks of vacation.
Yes, my understanding is we define it by 5 days a week, was my understanding, because Greg had to correct me too, so I almost did that.
How we've addressed this at work, because we have multiple shifts at Dell, is just allocating it as hours. So if you assume a 40-hour work week, just say like, you know, do math quick, like 200 hours a year or whatever.
I think that's a future piece. The one thing that we did try to keep it is close to the handbook right now as possible, and right now it's in days. And so that was part of this discussion as well. So you'll see like the vacation and the benefits are all what is in the handbook at this point. So we didn't really want to deviate from that. All right, and then classification is exempt, of course. His review, the general manager will receive an annual performance review. I will be working on a 360 review, which will be new to Mr. Drent, and he doesn't know about this yet. But we will by lottery pick a certain number of staff to give the review to. They will review Greg's performance, and then us as commissioners will review his performance. I reached out to Mr. Reynolds because he implemented this at the city when he came on board, and it was a great addition. Because for us, we don't know how staff sees Greg, and so this is our view into what the day-to-day is. So there's a performance review, working facilities equipment, expenses, professional development, termination. And we tried to keep days and kind of the same, you know, the notices, the 6 months of termination. So we tried to keep those similar throughout the contract. Some of this is standard, so if you guys have any other detailed questions, let me know. I think we hit the sections that are usually the.
I just want to know, does this protect the commission, or does this protect the general manager more?
I'll let Kayla speak to that piece.
President, local commissioners, Commissioner Brennan, are you looking at something in particular with respect to protection?
I guess the performance, and if there was the number 24 was severability. You know, if we had to terminate the contract and make sure, I think that was number 24.
Okay, I would direct you to the termination provision that's in section 13, actually. As you know, we are an at-will employment state in Minnesota. And so the commission may terminate the general manager's employment at any time, and it doesn't have to be for cause, by giving advance notice. If you do so, there's a financial component there of the 6 months of the current salary, subject to the salary cap and the maximum severance payment, of course, by statute. If there's a termination for cause, then there is no such payment that is done. So I would say that this agreement is really intended to preserve the relationship between the commission on the one side and the general manager on the other. There's an ability for either party to end the agreement if it chooses to do so. But the hope, of course, is that the parties can continue forward, and there's an ability to do that. So in my view, I'm struggling a bit to answer your question of who it protects more. I think there are protections for each party, and certainly the ability to terminate is the ultimate leverage that the commission has.
Is for cause a defined term anywhere?
Madam President, Commissioner Krieg, it is not defined, but there is sort of a body of case law that considers for cause, and it can include such things as a felony conviction, those kinds of things.
Okay. I just didn't know, because that seems like somewhat ambiguous for this contract, right? That's not defined. It
There are resources to legal authorities to determine for cause if need be.
And if it's minor things, it's not uncommon, to do the verbal, written, those types of things, or a PIP agreement. But at this, at this level, I think that as a commission, you may want to just exercise the out. That would be my personal comment on that. So, but, there's cause, which I think that from what Kayla is talking about, having cause or not, I think that this contract is much better than the last one we had. That put us in a huge bind. And so I think that for this, it's kind of protects us both in a much better light. Any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the agreement as written.
I motion to accept the agreement as written.
And a second? All right. So we have a motion and a second to accept the agreement as written. All those in,
Oh, who seconded it?
Commissioner
Mr. Creek?
Creek,
Okay.
sorry.
Sorry, I didn't see his hand.
It's okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. We have an agreement. All right. We'll move on to number 10, the reports, the general items. And we'll move on to Sharon, 10A, with our customer service report.
Thank you, President Mokel and Commissioners. Since our last meeting, the biggest effort that we've worked on was disconnects, which I'm happy to report went extremely well, considering we have not done them for 18 months. And also just a quick shout out to the staff. They were amazing. We did a new process and just the entire vibe in the office. They were calm, they were great with the customers, and it just couldn't have went better. And I think in the 6 years I've been here, this was a record in that we completed 100 disconnects in a day, and we didn't even realize we had done that many. So it went very, very well. The customers really loved the options, as did my staff, in terms of being able to offer our customers a few different ways to approach their past due balance. Just in general, we had 177 that were ultimately disconnected, and of those, about 43% ended up paying their balance in full. So people loved being able to, instead of paying a fee of $100, just get their account current. And I overheard my staff talking today that for this coming month, we are already at half of what we would normally send out in terms of collection letters. So it was kind of dual purpose for us as well, in that we're really kind of cleaning up some of the collections on those people whose balances weren't extraordinary. And then the other 47% went for the payment plan option. 10% either had moved, final billed. We may need to, do further efforts to collect on those. But overall, a great opportunity to work with our customers and give them a positive solution. I've also been working on Rhythm of the Rails, and just want to let you know we're ready to go with that. The canopy tent and back wall, customized back wall, that's all here. We've already set it up, looks great. The promotional products you have in front of you. I've been ordering all of the future giveaways. You were able to see on consent the different topics that we want to deal with. I've also ordered T-shirts for the staff that will be working the event, and then also came up with small business cards that I can hand out to anyone who's in attendance that might help drive traffic to our tent. And then I'm working with the chamber. They're taking the video that we had done in 2020 or 2019. I'm off maybe a year, but anyway, they're taking some of that footage, working in our new logo, and doing a 30-second spot for us as part of our sponsorship. So excited about that. And then lastly, the water survey, which I did email to all of you for discussion. Pretty simple, but at this point, I would just like any feedback as to the approach of it, content, and future direction, so that we can get that ready. And with that, I'll stand for any questions or comments.
All right, any questions for Ms. Welsh? BJ?
I did go over the water survey. What's our goal with the water survey?
The goal, as we defined it internally, was, do people really have an issue with our water enough to want to pay for the additional costs to treat it?
And it asks whether you know what your bill is. I think that's actually important too.
It's really good, yeah, I did like that part. You have to go find it, which
Yes.
is good.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't just do it based off your direct deposit, because that doesn't work. Because water and electric are separate.
Yeah, and
Oh,
and
sure.
I'll comment just a little bit on that, yeah, I think the goal, one of the goals is, what are the concerns, or is there some major groundswell that we have this? But I think, as I've walked through this process, I think that we probably shifted a little bit. I think that infrastructure planning for it, even if it's okay right now, I think infrastructure planning needs to be on the front in our CIP going forward, to make sure that some, potential contaminants that we don't know about now, but we can at least say, hey, this is the direction we're going, to make sure that we're going there. So I think it is twofold. I think, back when it started a year ago, that it was, hey, is this something that is a water quality, or what's going on there? But I think as we've worked through the process and gotten some direction from our commission and had some more input, I think that it's important to realize that even if people would say we're okay with where we're at, I think there's things we need to do as an organization to make sure we're heading in the right direction, that we have this protection, that if there was a contaminant, PFAS, some of the other stuff that maybe something we don't know about, that we're in place. So I think that even though we're asking some of these questions because we think it's important and it's what the direction we've gotten in past that we want to look at, I think also we need to take a really hard look at it during our CIP to make sure that we're putting funding in place, that we are in good shape for any contaminants that could happen to us. So I think that we've got good quality water, but I think that we need to be better at making sure that we have infrastructure in place for future use.
I would, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just say, I would second that, but in terms of targeting it to the customer, that's why I answered it the way I did, and as a sole focus for the customer. But Mr. Drent is absolutely right. We, as a utility, will obviously do what we need to do and believe to be prudent, but also just trying to get the input from the customer.
Commissioner Brennan?
So the water survey that you sent will be available at at Rhythm on the Rails, and it will also be out for people to complete from home? Or
Yeah, I can, so what we plan to have are these 4 tablets that have self-service. So literally right at the booth, people can complete it. I've already tested the tablets. IT has them set up for us. And you saw the survey. It's very quick, especially if you say no. So,
One thing I would, sorry, as you're on that topic, it's
Yes.
very different taking it on a desktop than it is on mobile. Mobile takes you through every question one at a time. I took it on my computer. My wife took it on her phone, and I
Okay.
saw the questions differently than she did.
I would say on a mobile, probably. I'm not sure how the tablet looks relative to a laptop.
I guess I'm just wondering if that's how if there's a change that you can make to make sure it looks like, because like I said, I saw multiple questions when I was on my desktop at one time, and she
Okay.
only saw one at a time, and I liked it the way she did it.
I was just gonna
I
say,
like it.
what's
I
your
think you want it
preference?
that way too.
Okay.
So I'm not. That might be just a setting thing in there. Sorry,
Okay.
too, but that's
Nope.
as you were on topic. That's one thing I noticed taking it.
Thank you. Mobile preferred. Okay.
Any other questions?
And I would comment that, yes, I think that we wanted to kick this off at Rhythm on the Rails, but we absolutely think that this should be on our website again, just to get as much traffic. And we talked about, the water bottle giveaways, and for taking the survey, we've also talked about if somebody requests one where they come in, hey, I took the survey, they send us an email, we're absolutely going to give them that water bottle for doing the survey. So we want to continue the momentum and get lots of input on this as best we can.
Are you
Yes.
going to do a Facebook post too, Sharon, so that can be
Yes.
shared? Okay.
Yes, and again, right, I think this is how much do you want us to promote it or drive it? So if we get the interaction at the Rhythm on the Rails and we have 5, 6, 7, 800, is that okay? Or do you want me to, have people come to our website? Because if I don't drive it, people are not going to come to the website and do it. So I would literally, yes, have to either Facebook, maybe do another bill insert. I think it's really like, to what end does the survey serve our future direction?
Right. But if it's something we can repost to the community sites out there, I know Commissioner Brennan has her
Yes.
council site. I mean, those are things that people do interact with. and so that would be
Absolutely.
perfect as well. So thank you. Any other, BJ?
Yeah, I would just say any no cost things on that
Yes,
side. I don't think
exactly.
bill inserts make. I don't think I think the cost as opposed to the response that you get, I'm sure you see, is very low.
Right.
So I would think anything free. Nothing is free because you have to put your time in to
Yep,
do it,
but-
obviously. But yeah.
Nope, I would agree.
And some of us on direct deposit don't usually open our bills every month, so.
Agreed.
Anyway,
No.
as a side thought. All right, any other comments or questions for Sharon?
I have one question.
Justin?
If you answer no on the first question, I was just done with the survey. I don't know if that was intended or if I should have jumped to question 4.
Nope, you were done. You should have received a thank you.
Okay, but do we still want to know whether or not, so like, obviously they have no problem with the water, but if you ask them if they are willing to pay to have it treated, they may still be willing to pay even if they don't currently have a problem with the water.
Good point.
Right?
Yes, that is definitely an option.
So I didn't know if it was intended that you dropped out after you pressed no, because
All of the.
yeah, I
the
was
buttons.
pressing all the buttons, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of had that same thought when I walked through it. And as we talked about it, we said, yeah, that was it. But if you want us to modify that, so to ask those questions afterwards, we can say, even if you vote no or say no to this, you can jump to the next question. Would you be willing to? If you think that's a better input, we can definitely do that. We just currently have it, so you're done with the survey if you don't have any concerns. But I do agree, that's why we brought it here, for some additional input. It may be something that's valued, and, or if you have no any further comments, you're done. If you want to see some of the other questions, we can continue on. We can have it both ways, so.
Okay, great.
Well, I think it's very hard to have an issue with something you have no knowledge of. So if they don't have any problems, is that due to lack of knowledge or because everything's okay?
Commissioner Brennan, did you have a comment?
I was going to switch the subject to delinquency, so.
Did you have one more comment, BJ?
I was going to say to Caden's point, I think the survey will be very telling from that sense. If we have if you get a lot of no's, I think there is a low level of understanding maybe in the community to this subject, and that tells you something, I would say. So.
Well, and that was, I think the feedback from the last survey that SEH prepared was that there was too much information and just too much reading and all of that. So we tried to just lead in with some very high-level, just bullet point. Like, we're very transparent. There are trace contaminants that are in there, but they are below the medical or health concern level. Our water's hard. We're not going to be surprised if you tell us that. So that was, it was kind of a modified approach, I guess. We wanted to educate in a very streamlined, bullet point fashion, and then, where's the temperature on your concern level?
Exactly, and I think with that piece of it, the other survey, the other thing about the complication is when people have to answer in long format is when they are more likely to not do a survey because they just don't want to take the time. And so I think that's maybe why we had such a low numbers responding to that, in my opinion. And that's usually some things that people say is when you have to start asking or answering long form questions, it starts to disengage your audience.
Yeah. And one other thought, if it wasn't clear, was that your monthly bill, I am able to have that data available, not by name, but by service address. So those of us at the booth would be able to say, oh, don't tell me your name, but a service address I can pull up. When you get to that, I believe it's the third question, and you enter $12.85, then it'll take you to the next two scenarios. So,
We want to include something that reminds people of that when they're taking the survey at Rhythm of the Rails, because if you get to that question, you're holding your iPad, and there's nothing there to tell you that. If they didn't hear it, then they're just going to guess at a number and then go on. But if it says, by service address, just ask, then they'll ask.
yeah, we're going to have people holding the tablets and handing
was
them
wondering.
to people, and, we'll do the password to bring up the survey.
Okay.
And then it would be, at that time.
Okay.
Okay, here, if we have Post-its or whatever, to give them that figure.
One other thing is, on question 4, you can change the numbers that come up. And I don't know if, that doesn't really matter, but if when you pull the data back down, if those numbers have then been changed,
Oh, it's an editable field?
is an editable
Okay.
field. Yeah, so I was
If
able
that's
to
a
edit
word,
the field
sorry.
and then submit my answer, which I thought was weird.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Bush,
All right, well, to stay on time, I'm going to flip-flop to the delinquency conversation, and I think we'll have more to talk about at the next meeting, because we'll have a couple of rhythms on our rails under our belts and know where we're at with the surveys and everything. So to answer Jody's question on the delinquency.
I just had a quick two questions. You had indicated, I think in an email, that you were targeting the higher balance accounts and you're going to decide on how to handle the lower balance accounts. And I'm just wondering if those lower balance accounts have gone through that process yet?
Yes, the 177 service orders, or, probably it was closer to 200, because about 22 people actually paid in advance of being disconnected. So they were not part of my disconnect numbers, but the 161, I believe, was the number. The absolute highest balances were not even part of disconnects. So the next 200 that I was able to address, we went as low as $375 for a balance. So pretty much anyone now that didn't get disconnected just because we had to cut it off on volume is most likely apartment dwellers that could be multiple months behind, but if they're residential, they're probably not more than a month behind if they're a single-family home residential.
Okay. You said that 47% went on a payment plan. So if they're on a payment plan, are they still considered delinquent? And is it beneficial for us to say that they're delinquent or not delinquent on our financials?
They are definitely still delinquent.
Okay.
So it moves from what we call regular collections to special collections. But I think I had mentioned this at the last meeting, being totally transparent. At this point, until people start paying us, we haven't reduced our delinquency or debt. I've just shifted it from a regular collection to a special, but we're talking to them, they've committed to something,
Okay.
and they're going to be held accountable to make those payments. And I think the last time we discussed this is if they miss one of their payments, they would be disconnected, but would only have to pay that missed payment plus the $100 reconnect fee. If they miss a second payment, they have to bring their account current to be reconnected.
All right. Well, thank you, Sharon, for that update. And we are going to move on to 10B. I did want to make a comment, and just in case Commissioner Brennan needs to leave, is that my goal was to have Mr. Romansky give us this overview of IT projections. And then at some future point, I do believe it's probably in our best interest to do a closed session. But I would like to get the commission questions for that meeting so that we can be very precise in what we want from Bob. So with that, Mr. Romansky.
Get my notepad. Good evening. Yeah, we're talking about getting just a 10,000-foot overview of what we're doing for IT protections. Back in 2018, we went out to seek out organizations to come in here and to comb through the utility and just give us a report card on how well we're doing to protect ourselves against ransomware, cybersecurity issues, being hacked, email issues. And what we determined at the time, after combing through narrowing down about three different organizations, we contracted with FR Secure out of Minnetonka. FR Secure came back, and they specifically looked up things to test us against based on public utilities. So that worked out really great. So they were going to come in first to do an audit, but what I pushed for was to do an assessment. It's our first time going through it, so we did a complete assessment from throughout Shakopee Public Utilities. So it's going to be high level. As mentioned, we can go ahead and do a closed session meeting at a later date. I prefer not to disclose specific details of hardware and software tools that we're using to protect us at this moment. And if we go into closed door, it'd be kind of nice not to get that out into the public, is all I ask. When FR Secure came in, they focused on 4 general areas to examine us. One was administrative security controls. So basically, they did a comprehensive review of all documentation and processes and practices. And basically, administrative security controls means they're combing through policies, procedures, an example, acceptable use policies, data handling policies. They even went into policies based on how you handle financial records, how you protect financial data. Okay, to explain what they did administratively. So that's what I mean by administrative level. What are we doing to have hard-coded our policies and procedures to protect our data and to protect financial in the here. The second one they went over was physical security controls. Now this is a review of, we walked through the entire building looking at things like where do you have your financial data? They went and checked to see how you had them secured, were they in file cabinets, were they in locked rooms, what kind of financials they were, just to make sure of how we did our practices. They also, without people's knowledge, they also roamed through the facility and we're looking to see what was on people's desks, especially in like customer areas, to determine if sensitive data might be obtained by just a casual observer coming through the utility to seek information. So it was a very, very good exam of the physical controls. The important one for me in technology was the internal network security. With that, they went and they checked all vulnerabilities, unauthorized use of information, destruction of data, how easy it could be. This is all done behind our firewall. So a team was in here. We didn't know what they were doing. They hooked into our network with their systems, and they tried to hack from the inside. And so they were going after desktops, they're going after systems, they were going after anything they could. They were trying to compromise data networking equipment. So they were really combing through and to see where our weakest links were. And they also interviewed us. They asked about practices and what we did and policies and procedures as far as, well, how do we back up? Where do we back up? Where does that data go? And I'm happy to say we passed with flying colors with the internal investigation that they did. We have our little punch list we've been working on since 2018, but all in all, they couldn't hack into our systems, which I'm very proud of, and we're going to harden them even more with the information that they gave us. Now, the external portion of this, the last one there, the external network security, that's for vulnerabilities coming in from the outside through the firewall. And they were doing their port attacks, and they were trying to hack into the systems. They were trying to, they even sent like test emails with malware and things like that to see how well people would open them up, and some people did not open them up. I'm very proud of that too, after we've been driving home the message. So they really did their homework, and they really tried hacking in, and they could not. So we passed that too. So that was very, very, very important. Our internal systems. Not to get too particular, but we have high availability pair of firewalls that we have. Everything we have in here for protection in the high end of Gardner Group quadrant for products and stuff. So the firewall has redundancy, has security protection. They have antivirus off the firewall, web filtering, application control, intrusion protection, web application firewall protections, and we have a very secure VPN connectivity into Shakopee Public Utilities, requiring a specific client that we maintain and put on if we allow you to come in and use our VPN services. And only select vendors, we will give them access to VPN. And with all vendors, they must contact the technology department for us to open it up for them. And when they're done, we're supposed to let us know so we can shut the door, so no one else can use their credentials. If over their allotted time that they do not notify us, they find out in a hurry when they try to get back in, and they find out that we inadvertently just shut them off anyway, because we don't want to leave things open for any length of time. So it's very secure. And during COVID, many of the workers here, that's all we did. They came in through that same network. Our email spam filter is cloud-based. It also has an option for encryption, which they're using in billing and other areas when you want to send encrypted messages. It has, besides the spam filtering, it has its own layer of antivirus scanning through all the emails. So by having a firewall doing similar scans, you're having your email system doing similar scans, you have different virus definitions checking against viruses, and it's good not to have all your eggs in one basket, not to have one system across the board protecting everything, your firewall and your email, because once they can hack one of those, they can hack all of those. And then also our antivirus is on all of our desktops and our servers, and they have built-in protection for ransomware, intrusion protection, malware, viruses. And we have an internal antivirus management server that collects all the data. It automatically will update the clients out there. It will automatically update all the definition files. Definition files are updated on a regular basis, so they're not old there. We do get email alerts if someone turns off their antivirus. We get a message right away saying it's been turned off. We also, if someone's been like on vacation for a while, missed some definitions, we also know that didn't happen. I've been here 6 years. Only twice it flagged a couple computers that actually got infected, so that's pretty good. We can also through what we learned through FR Secure, we're going to also be tightening the screws a little bit more on that too, because it also has, we use that also for the firewall protection inside of our desktops, not using the Windows one, so it's another firewall separate from like a Windows firewall for added protection. And then the normal Microsoft security things through locking down the systems with group policies and things like that. No one except for under less than a handful of people have the ability when they download things, to install anything on their computer. Okay, they have to contact us if they want anything on there. We also, through FR Secure, we use PDQ deploy and PDQ inventory. So we get regular reports from that. If someone installs a piece of software on their computer and they don't let us know, we know. So this way we can go ahead and we get our report, and we can go to their desk and we run regular inventory reports. And then we also keep up with all of our patching. And we also run reports on the patching. And then obviously being in a Windows environment, as Windows gets patched and as Windows gets the next release, we're on top of it on a regular basis. I kept this separate because the important thing with utility is always going to be the SCADA systems for water and for electric. So both those systems, they are completely isolated from our network, and they're also isolated from the public network. And the networking hubs for that are in a locked room that no one else can get to, and even the SCADA system networks don't touch each other. So it's just internal for the systems inside for electric and water, from the pump houses to the substations. They connect up, and it's just isolated in there. And then in order for anyone to gain access to that equipment, it is in the locked server room, and there's less than a handful of people who have access to get into that room. So I know, I hear all the time, my vendors here, will you let them in? So we just kind of keep that locked tight as a drum. All the main SCADA systems have redundancy to them, redundant systems. The new surveillance system has redundant hosts for that, and same thing with water. We also use the local policies for that, and then also they use the internal firewalls for all systems and desktops inside those SCADA environments, but they are really based off of public utility standards and lockdowns and things like that. We have a document for that, and we apply that, so they're like everything is tight into the deep inside the bowels of Windows and stuff. We lock things down tight as a drum. And then all machines, like I said before, are locked inside of with limited access inside of our server room. For data backup and protection, all of our systems in here are virtual machines. They are backed up and replicated. Replication is used to protect against ransomware, get ransomware protection, security, and quality backups. Data backups include, we have a local short-term, local long-term backup. We also at the same time push to a cloud long-term backup. We have also a cloud disaster recovery backup. We have multiple copies of the same data, but it's across different systems. So it's not all sitting in on one system. So if we do get ransomware, we just stop the local one backup. We can retrieve all of our stuff from another. All of our virtual systems can be accessed from any location via cloud within 24 hours. Part of our DR packages, they're all virtual machines, they're all in the cloud. We just have to find a place to house people, make the connection, the secured connection through a firewall to where our virtual machines are in the cloud, and then just have staff run from that location. All employee computers have built-in Wi-Fi. A few years back when I was working on a DR for the utility as a whole anyway, I seeked out smaller computers for people to use at their desks. I made sure they also had built-in Wi-Fi. And with that, they made them more portable. So when COVID hit and everyone's running around trying to figure out what are we going to do, how can we get, how long it's going to take us to get people to go home, I could just tell people, order me 13 monitors, 13 keyboards, 13 mice. And when that stuff arrived, I told them in less than 4 days, take them home, plug them in. We taught them how to do VPN. Myself and my tech, Dan, we went to their house, made sure things were set up and secure, And they also had IP phones, so their phones are all portable too. And I know Sharon can attest, they're running call handling centers, the things like that from their home. They had some staff in, some staff out, and it worked really, really well. And then, so we have that, and so I also thank COVID for that, because there was one thing I wanted to test. Now, that part of our DR plan has been fully tested and works. And I'd love to share more, but I think I have no problem with that. I just would recommend we do it, in a closed session, and so the information can get out to the public. On a final note, we are gonna have FR Secure come back to do an audit. We just did the assessment, okay? Because no one's ever perfect, you're gonna find issues, okay? And they told us areas we need to fix, and it's a process to get through all that to get fixed, but we are working on that. And they have a really neat tool too, because it's an interactive tool. As we fix the things that they bring up in this assessment, it gives us a automatic score of once we can check off our changes to show how well we've improved, which is a good thing. So then when they come in and they do that audit, okay, I don't know, with COVID and everything, I don't know if we can get it done for 22, but if worst case is be 2023, then the plan is to have an audit in 2023, and either yearly or every 2 years, make sure that we get that audit all the time, just, to always be on top of our security. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Sure.
Just to be clear, I don't have one, I'm not one of the 5 people, so I'm just like everyone else. I've tried to, I remember going on our heating and air conditioning system and said, you need to upgrade to this platform, and push yes, and it whoop, just shuts down, and I have to go to IT just like everyone else. So I think it is good. We definitely keep that separation. I obviously, think that that's important that we make sure. I'm sure there's lots of questions that can be addressed at a later time, but yeah, I do appreciate what they do. As frustrating as it can be sometimes, we do understand the importance of it as well.
Vice President Fox, did you want to go first? I knew you would.
Any
have
questions
stuff.
I have wouldn't be suited to be answered here and now.
Okay.
Right.
Do we want to handle that part, Bob, by just emailing our questions to Denise for you for that future
Yeah.
meeting?
Yep.
The one question I had, did you, is, do you do any staff trainings on security?
Yeah, we do, as new product stuff come out and things like that, we do. But part of the FR Secure report is regular trainings. So that will be ramped up, because that's also covered. They do an amazing job with the assessment. So it's not, a lot of the questions you're gonna bring up, I bet you I can show you in the report where it's already either done or on the checklist to be done, because it's common things that they address as far as regular trainings. And also as far as automatic logging and automatic auditing and reporting, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I assume that was part of the audit, you just hadn't mentioned it, and I just wanted
Oh, yeah.
to touch on that.
In fact, if, really, with questions too, if you really want to, if someone comes in and stuff like that, we can go over it.
Okay,
Then you can actually comb through it, in internal environment, then you go, oh, yeah, it's already been the question's already been asked or addressed, or is showing that it was addressed but needs work, if that helps.
any other questions? I do have a question, but it's more for management/finance. What types of insurance do we have, and has ours gone up this year? As you know, there's been a lot of breaches with companies, and one was even CNA Insurance, who sold IT insurance, and so now they're dropping that coverage, and so I've seen coverage increase almost a third. Is that something that we're seeing here? What type of systems that we have for that insurance to make sure, are they requiring the second sign-on, any of those types of things to insure us going forward? Because those are other things that are being implemented.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioners, I've not been told that we have a problem or we've had significant increase, but I will write it down and we'll definitely bring
Okay.
it back at a future meeting. I don't want to speak for that for sure until I look at those costs.
Yep.
And if we've had any problems, but I have not been aware of any at this time.
Without seeing Gene, I wasn't sure if you guys would know the answer. Bob?
One thing one thing Renee did is Renee I don't have access to her file drawer, but in there, she was already looking at things for ransomware insurance as an add-on, things like that. Because we were at a FR Secure, they had a seminar down at one of their facilities and things like that. We were talking about what you're talking about. It's added insurance to protect against IT breaches and things like that, to help recover your losses if you have any. So I know that was also on her radar.
Because losses can be pretty substantial.
Yes.
Even just for the investigation to see if it breached anything.
Correct.
So, okay, that's great.
Great, we'll check into that.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, everybody email your direct questions to Denise for future closed session. All right, so we will move on to number 10C, the water tower logo. Mr. Drent.
All right, let me get logged in 1 second here. All right, so part of the policy decision on what our water tower looks like, we're getting at that phase or that time where we're going to have to make some decisions. I mean, it wouldn't have to be at this meeting, but I wanted to start thinking about what our water tower is going to look like, the logo, and what we've done. So tank number 8 is obviously in the Windermere subdivision. We've talked about that a lot. Since 1966, SPU elevated tanks have had the Shakopee name and the SPU logo on them. I did put a sheet in here so everyone could see that in your packet on what the logo looked like in the past. Since the first tank there in 1940 did not have anything. Then we went to the Shakopee and the SPU logo in 1966, 1980, and then in 2002. Obviously this one's coming at that time, and we are wondering if we want to keep on past practice. We did put the two views that would look like a number 8, and then also we need to figure out an orientation. So I have a few pictures here on where do we want Shakopee to be said, and where do we want our SPU logo. So currently this picture right here is a picture that is right at 41 interchange. You can see right there that this kind of in the middle right there is where the water tower is going to be. Can't see it very good yet. It will be up there, but I'm not sure we want to say that's where we want the Shakopee name. You'd probably be able to see it, but if the trees get any taller, you probably would not be able to see it. Now, as you go just a little bit further down, this is between 41 and the trailer park that's really halfway in between here. I stopped and took another picture just because of the elevation and where you're at in your vehicle. You can start to see this. You're going to see the majority of the tower. This is the bottom down here. We're not quite halfway. We're going to start making that turnaround there, and then it'll kind of come above here. So you'll be able to see pretty good from that. Now, once you hit right at, there's a tower there, and as you hit, this is just before the trailer park, really stopping right at the trailer park. You can see that there's not going to be any obstruction in this area here. So what I would recommend, this is where we brought it here, is I would love for this to say Shakopee, big and bold, right at you, right at that, just before the trailer park. You're gonna be plenty clearance. Even if the trees get significantly taller, you would still be able to see it. So then I got a few other angles here. So this next one is from, it would be from County Road 78 and, I get these numbers right. So this one's 69.
I hate the numbers.
Right, so that would be where our Shakopee substation is, just down 69 at that next corner at 78, kind of from there. So from this angle, you would probably see the SPU logo, if you agree with that, from this angle. You can see that that's going to be significantly bigger. I did zoom in on it just a little bit so you'd be able to see it. You're going to be able to see that pretty good from that angle. So you'd see the SPU logo if that's what the commission chooses. Now this is from the other side of Windermere. This would be 78 and 15. So this would be the other side, kind of by the churches that are right there. This is right at the corner. You can see that there's some houses being built there. I just drove up to, I believe it's Jackson Town Hall, and from there, you can see it significantly better. This would be really almost the whole Shakopee logo would be on this. So you would see the name Shakopee from that angle if you went the 4 different sides. So that's that one, and I got one more here. So, that's not quite right. So we have 2 different options. We can go, if you choose, we can have the SPU logo a little smaller, so you can, as you're looking straight on, you don't really see the sides of it, and you just see either Shakopee or the logo. Obviously, if you're halfway in between, you'll see something. Or we could go a little bit bigger, and so when you're looking at the Shakopee, you would see also part of the logo and that. So we've just wanted some direction, whether the commission is in agreement that we should continue this practice, or do you want something different on our water tower? So that's kind of where we were at with it. We thought this was a great discussion, a policy decision that the commissioners should make on this and give us direction, because Sharon's worked a little bit with the design and helping on this, make sure that the colors are appropriate if we go this route, and we just want to make sure this is correct. So with that, if you want to see any other pictures or you want to understand orientation, that was kind of our thoughts, but again, we feel this is a policy decision.
All right, commissioners, thoughts?
I think it's one of those times we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Does the city have a preference on what goes on there? Do they care?
I
Sign
haven't
ordinance?
asked, yeah. I haven't asked yet, but I can sure send an email and just say, hey, this is what we're looking at, type of deal. I think in past, it's been the utility, and the commission has made those decisions, and as long as, I think the big thing is just me as I drive into town as well, it's kind of a staple of the community. I think you want to make sure as we talked about it internally, I don't want to show the Shakopee logo when you're coming down 169, because somebody might not know what that is, right? Because I think as we're coming over 41, just getting to town, I want it to say Shakopee in big bold letters. So people say, hey, we're in Shakopee now. As they go around a little further, they will see our logo and they can associate with Shakopee, but I think it's important that we really stand out and say, hey, we're in Shakopee.
I do kind of like that it touches on this one, where the logo, you can kind of see the,
You can still see a little bit of that, so you get that reference as you see Shakopee. You may see, hey, that's right, I've seen that logo before. So anyway, I personally like this one a little bit larger as well, just to make sure the further you are away, you're going to be able to read it. Not that the other one would be small. This is a 750,000 gallon tank. These letters are massive, right? But I know I've had comments. I've talked to a couple of water guys, and they say when you're in Chaska, there's certain times you can come down, you can start to see if you look for it. Once it's complete, I think being able to read that is going to be really cool. So,
okay,
well,
all right.
I appreciate you got us direction, and we will continue on as past practice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I did want to go back, I thanked Bob for his presentation, but I forgot to thank him for passing all those security pieces, so I didn't want to be remiss in saying that. Sorry, Mr. Romansky. All right, so, items for future agendas, do we have anything that we want added, or that maybe we talked about bringing back and wanted to know status? All right.
Well, I did just kind of have the thought, well, not just, but during the events of this evening, we have commission meetings with the city, and we kind of talked about the county. Would there be any merit to like maybe a yearly meeting with the county board, or even like a triumvirate of the city and the county and SPU?
That's an interesting thought.
Because if the county commission wants transparency and communication, we should probably talk to
Yeah.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah, let me talk to Mr. Reynolds about that, and we'll do a little brainstorm and see if that makes sense at some time to have a board. I mean, I think we're all in Scott County, we're all, one vision, and we're looking to grow and do things. So I think that's a wonderful idea, so let me just kind of wrap that around and see where it lands.
All right, great. With that,
I guess one question about, is next meeting a good meeting? Does anybody have any conflicts as far as if we would do a short tour at our next meeting? Or or do we want to wait until one of our meetings that's a little further into the fall when it's not quite as busy? I'm comfortable either way. I just want to, I know it's on the radar. We can sure wait till a September meeting where it's maybe not quite as hot as well, so.
I like not hot.
Okay.
I know, I was thinking fall, where it's not hot.
All right, yeah. We
I was
will-
just waiting for it to be the 100-degree day where we're all like
Right, yeah.
cussing that we decided to
Yeah,
do this.
and that will help me
Okay.
line it up with MMPA and that facility as well. So I will probably try something in like September or something.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
All right, so our mid-month meeting is July 19th. Our next regular, well, I guess they're both regular meetings, is August 2nd. With that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn until July 19th.
I will second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.